All right. So speaking in the energy of your sovereignty, it is powerful. It will shift, okay, your physical environment, literally shift your physical environment. But do not expect applause from other people for being relatable. Okay. What am I talking about? We're going to talk about how when you speak as a sovereign being, you're not speaking with the hope of being relatable to other people, because sometimes you're just not going to be. Being powerful does not equate to being relatable. All right. So here's the thing. People are programmed. We have all been programmed to speak in a certain way, okay? To say certain things. Where do you think those common phrases that we hear that get infused into our conversation, where do you think those common phrases come from? And they show up in conversation whether we agree with them or not. We say these different common phrases because we think it makes us relatable. We think it makes us sound realistic. And we're going to get into some of those phrases as we go through today's episode. All right. So this certain way that I'm speaking of, it makes people susceptible to being victims of their environment, because most of us have never been taught that we can actually change our physical environment by what we say. Now, let's pause here, because if you're watching this, maybe someone watching this is going to say, well, in order to change your life, in order to change your environment, you need more than words. You have to take action. We already know that. However, your creation begins with you embracing the fact that you can create your environment by what you say. And as you speak what you desire, as you speak your vision, as you stand in your sovereign identity, as you speak, you are changing, you're rewiring your subconscious, and you are activating your cells to your new reality. So naturally, you're going to be guided to take inspired action. So when people say, oh, well, you can't just speak words, you have to take action. That actually is stupid. And it's needless to say. And it's also showing when people say that they don't understand the power of words, because obviously you're going to move in a certain way based on what you say. And that movement is going to be that guided action and that inspired action that you take that aligns with what you say. Because really, when you create, when you are speaking, when you are exercising the power of your throat chakra, you are just simply agreeing with what already is. All right, hold on to that. So let me repeat what I just said. So people are programmed to speak in a certain way. This programmed certain way, it makes people susceptible to being victims of their physical environment. The second thing is you start to agree with status quo. That status quo shows up in religion. It shows up in society. It shows in families. All right. So particularly, let me use the example of families and how that shows up in families. So you most likely come from a family where you're used to doing things. Everybody's used to doing things and living life in a particular way. There's a particular way that everyone in the family does things, from raising their kids to the way that you get your money to the way that you earn money. Okay. So even from relationships and how relationships and being in a relationship, what it means to be in a relationship, and whether your relationship is meaningful, whether you get married or not, these are certain ways that families have come together. And without saying this is how we do things, you say, okay, this is how we do things in this family. All right. So I just mentioned this, from the way people choose to make their money to the way people think about things, all the way down to how people vote. whether they vote or not. All right. This gets very real in families. All right. So when you see a person, and most likely that is you, because you have decided to embrace who you are as a sovereign being. So here you come as a sovereign being, and you're choosing your sovereignty over status quo. You are rocking the boat of the consciousness of that entire family. You may even be rocking the boat of that entire lineage. All right. Because you're choosing sovereignty over status quo. All right. A third thing that can happen when we're programmed to speak a certain way, it shows up when you begin to disagree with your own desires. All right. And that may sound like an oxymoron, but here's what I mean. How can you disagree with your own desires? How do you disagree with your own desires? You ignore them. You ignore them because perhaps they sound too big. Again, we go back to this idea of realistic notions. So for example, the example that I just used with families and how people in the family get their money. Well, perhaps in your family, the traditional way, the status quo way of getting money is to get the good grades in school, go to college, get a good job, move up that corporate ladder. Okay. And then you have that good job so you can have your great retirement. And that is how you get money. But perhaps for you, you're saying, no, I don't want that. As a sovereign being, I know that I was not meant to give up my life force energy 8 hours a day to someone else, especially when I don't necessarily care for that thing that I'm doing for 8 hours a day. That is an example. And I'm using that money example because that's the one that we can understand. We all understand money. All right. We can always use money as an illustration for everything. Okay. So that is a desire that you have. However, when you are programmed to speak a certain way, you ignore that because of the program way of doing things. You tell yourself, well, even though I don't want to work for anyone. I actually want to get paid to travel. That's how I actually want to get money. But because that goes beyond the so-called status quo, you ignore it. You downplay that desire. You tell yourself, well, maybe it's something that I'll just work toward for 10 years down the road, instead of accepting that desire now. Okay. Not saying, so you ignore your desire. And then the next thing is you're not saying your desires out loud because you don't want to sound unrealistic about what you can have in your life and about how you can live your life that is aligned for you. Okay. So yes, I am going through my notes. You know how I do. Now, the fourth thing is, when you are programmed to speak a certain way, this certain way causes you to agree with thought forms that you have elevated beyond. Now, these thought forms that I'm talking about, this goes back to what I was talking about at the top of the episode when I was talking about those common phrases that come up in conversation because it makes us relatable to other people. So we think. It makes us sound realistic. So we think. So what that means is you start to agree with perspectives just to be agreeable. So with the example that I used of money and how you choose to get it and how you choose to give away your life force energy to something that you don't like, to a job that you don't even care for. Okay. You start to agree with the perspective that having a job is the only way to receive money. Trading time, trading your life force energy for $1 is the only way for you to receive money and resources in infinite supply in your life. That is agreeing with a perspective just to be agreeable. Okay. People make program thought forms a part of their way of living, being, doing, and speaking. Most of the time, and I'm going to say all of the time, never considering if they agree with those thoughts. Okay? When you are speaking in your sovereignty, when you're living in your sovereignty, you speak in a way that takes you beyond what's in front of you. Because that is what the sovereign frequency does. It moves you into the quantum, okay? It moves you into the quantum. This does not mean that you are oblivious to what is in front of you. It doesn't mean that you're oblivious to what is taking place in front of you. It doesn't mean that you are ignoring the fact. We'll go back to the example of working a job when you want to travel. It doesn't mean that you're ignoring that you don't like the company, you don't like the work you do, you don't even like your coworkers. It doesn't mean that you're oblivious to that. It means that you are aware of your transcendence as a sovereign being to speak your way into the truth of who you are and how you want to live your life. Speaking beyond that, speaking beyond your physical, that is foreign. That is a foreign concept to so many in society. It's a foreign concept to society in general. Okay. To the point that these thought forms become a part of your life. They become conversation staples. All right. To the point where people do not even speak with the intention of creating. People begin to speak with the intention of just being relatable, being agreeable. Now, what do you need to take from all of this that we just discussed? What do you need to take away from this to support you in standing in your sovereign divine word power? What do you need to take from this? First of all, remember when you speak, yes, it is about the words, being intentional about what you say. It's also about the power of your breath that makes the words powerful. Your breath is powerful, right? This is why I always say, taking moments throughout your day to honor your own breath, to breathe deeply with intention. It should be a daily practice, just like brushing your teeth. Why? Why do we need to be intentional about deep breathing? Well, deep breathing clears out your nervous system, all right? And it cleanses out your energetic aura of anything that does not belong. Okay? And there is no such thing as you not having time to do this. There's no such thing as you saying, well, I don't have time throughout my day to be intentional about deep breathing. You always have time that's an investment. You always have time to invest in your spiritual elevation. Being intentional with your breath makes you intentional about your words. That is an investment in your spiritual elevation. Okay. To assist you with that, I have a document. It's an ebook called Cast Your Spell, where I go into depth about, it's not an entire, science presentation, but I do get into the science of words and breath in that ebook. And then I also provide you with incantations, affirmations, whatever you want to call them in that book. There's over 100 of them that cover every single part of your life. So I invite you to download that, go purchase it. I think it's $15.55 or something like that. But anyway, go to my website, unleashedalchemy.com. Underneath books, the book is called Cast Your Spell. All right. So let's get back into the episode. Now, I want to stay with deep intentional breathing. Deep intentional breathing also grounds you. Not only does it clear out your nervous system and your aura, but it grounds you in the moment with peace and calming energy. All right. So, how does having calm and peaceful energy, how does it help you in your everyday life? Well, it helps you in your conversation. All right. It helps you in your interactions with other people so that you can stay intentional about the words that you use, and so that your energy does not get entangled in these limiting thought forms and with these limited conversation pieces that come up in your interactions with other people. So let me give you some examples. All right. So first, before we get into the examples, here's what I want to tell you. When you have peace and calm energy because you've been intentional about your deep breathing throughout your day, you've made it a practice. This energy, it influences you to be intentional about your words, and knowing that the words you speak about yourself will never be influenced by what other individuals are speaking. The words that you use to speak about yourself, because you're intentional, they will never be they will never be influenced by those limited conversational pieces to remain with the status quo that we have all been programmed to just spew out in conversation. All right. So here's an example. Now, have you ever talked to someone? Now, if you made it this far in the video, I'm sure that you have. Have you ever talked to someone about something that you wanted to do? All right. You had a vision for, and every time you said something about your vision, about something that you wanted to do, that individual had some type of rebuttal. Their rebuttal was infused with all the difficulty that would surround your vision and its completion. There's always a rebuttal. You said, oh, well, I want to travel and I know I can get paid for that. And then the person would say something like, well, that's going to take a really long time. And how are you going to do that? Not a lot of people, there's some people that do that, but not a lot of people are able to make money traveling. It's always something. And here's the thing, that person could have every intention of thinking that they're helping you and giving you sound advice. This is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Or they'll say something like, well, don't you want to work at the job a little bit longer, save up some more money? Don't you think, you should kind of push that out a little bit to see what happens? That is what I'm talking about. That is a person, or those individuals who say things like that, they are bound by status quo. Because again, at the top of this video, like we said, they have never been taught that they can use the power of their words to create what they want. So now they have allowed themselves to be limited by that status quo. Okay. And to be relatable. Yes, it would sound relatable for you to say, oh, well, maybe you're right. Maybe I'll just stick around at this job for a little while longer and just see what happens. When in the back of your mind, you're like, no, that's not what I want to do. I know that I have what it takes to do this thing. And I'm using travel as an example. You can put whatever you want in that. Okay. Fill in the blank the way that you want. But I'm using that as an example. Okay. So, and here's the thing. Even if you were to give that person an idea to pursue for themselves based on what they told you they wanted, they would still have the same rebuttal for themselves. The same rebuttal would apply. So here you have a person or people, again, like we said, ignoring their own desires, okay, wanting to be relatable with the status quo, not even paying attention to what they want in their own lives. Okay. So let's keep going. And this is where the intention of your breath work comes in. This is why that peace and calm energy is necessary. Because here's the thing. As a sovereign being, yes, there are going to be people that will move themselves out of your life. You won't have to say anything. Yes, there are going to be some people who will remain in your life, people that you love. You will not be able to tell them hardly anything. And that's fine. I am not in the business of telling you as a spiritual elevated person to cut people out of your life. You will not hear me say that. What I believe is that we are to be grounded in our sovereignty while navigating our relationships, while navigating any type of relationship it is, friendship, romantic partner, your family. Now, I'm not telling you to stay in a relationship or stay in connection with someone who is abusive in all ways, verbally, emotionally, no. But how are you going to know if you are elevating in your sovereignty, in your spirituality, if you cannot be in community and in communication with other people? All right. So that's why part of the reason why I'm making this video. But anyway, okay. So back to intentional breath, intentional words, leading you to have peace and calm energy in your interactions with other people. Because you are grounded in your place of calm and peace, you're not rattled by another person's refusal to elevate beyond societal program, beyond religious programming, beyond familiar programming, beyond status quo programming, all of that. You are not rattled. So what that the person said what they said. You don't start taking or talking on the frequency of that person just to be agreeable with them or to be relatable. Because you are in your state of calm and peace, you stand in the truth of your breath. You stand in the truth of the power of your breath that infuses the power of your words to manifest in the physical. So, to be in that consciousness, you have to get into the practice of being intentional about what you say. This is not about you being agreeable. You always have to remember that your word is programming your cells to conform to what you say. And your body begins to move in certain ways so that you start to see what you have said in your physical life. You also have to accept that people may view you as unrealistic and may attempt to include you in what they believe for themselves. Okay? Let me give you another example. You'll hear people, and I hear, and it's so interesting to me because as a 48-year-old woman, I am vibrant. I feel even more vibrant than I did in my early 20s. And I will hear people in their 30s, people in their early 40s, talking about how tired they are, talking about how they're getting old, talking about how they're just, they talk as if they don't have any time left. And that is just so interesting to me. However, that has become a status quo. Why do I say that? Because we have been taught to believe that when we get to a certain age, we should have all these things in line. That if we get to a certain age, that we should start to feel all these different strange pains in our body. That we should start to expect for our bodies to function a certain way because of an age. That is status quo. Okay? Do not get entangled if that person wants to believe that because they are 41, so now they are expecting to have to wear glasses, then let them have it for themselves. You do not have to engage in that to be agreeable. Another example of this is people believing, and I kind of touched on this already, but I'll say it again. People believing that they can only have certain things in life because of their age. People telling themselves it's too late to accomplish certain things. Or if you are a very young person, you are watching this, you are in your early 20s. Who said that you could not be a millionaire in your early 20s? Who told you that you have to somehow wait a very long time to start a business? Or if you have a business right now, you are in your early 20s, who said that it's going to take a very long time for you to see profit in your business? That is status quo. Has nothing to do with you. Do you see what I'm saying? And for many people, just the fact that I said that would make me appear to be unrealistic. Well, maybe for another person who believes that they do have to wait a long time if they have a business to see profit, maybe that is realistic for them. But that another person's idea of what's realistic has nothing to do with you. What is realistic for you is for you to stand firm in your sovereign identity. What is realistic for you is to understand the power of your breath, which infuses the power of your words, which infuses your creation power. Okay? So that is what I want you to take away from this video. You being sovereign does not equal being relatable. Choose your sovereignty over being realistic. Choose your sovereignty over being relatable. All right? Start to practice intentional deep breathing throughout the day, because that will result in you being intentional about the words that you say when you are in conversation and in communication with other people. You do not have to allow what someone's programmed idea of what's realistic to affect you and to affect how you speak. So, in the end, don't forget to go to unleashedalchemy.com. You can purchase my ebook, Cast Your Spell. All right, download that book. That would be very helpful for you. Also, if you are wanting more one-on-one support in embracing who you are as a sovereign being that can create your life, book a session with me. There's two ways now that you can work with me. Work with me one-on-one, I should say. There's a coaching package that's 24 sessions that you can book. Okay. I also now have a one-off 55-minute session that you can book with me, and you're going to walk away with transformation and automatic steps that you can start to implement into your life before you get off that call, or I should say video call. And by the way, my 24 sessions, the one-on-one 24 sessions, and also the one-off 55-minute session, those are video calls. Okay, I do video. We need to see each other. All right, it's very important work. And also, speaking of work, the work that I do, if you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe. The work that I do is to help people, to support people in embracing their sovereign identity from the shackles of religious programming. It's one thing to walk away from the church. It's one thing to walk away from religion, but it is another thing to elevate your nervous system, to elevate your identity, because that's what religion does. Religion snatches or causes you to forget who you are as a sovereign being. So you have to do the elevation within, the internal elevation, to be completely free from that, because programming has its negative influence in every single part of your life. And in order for you to recognize those blind spots of where religious programming has negatively influenced your life, you have to begin with the internal upgrade first to be completely free. All right. So go to unleashedalchemy.com. Again, the book, Cast Your Spell. Look at ways that you can work with me one-on-one. I also have courses. All right. Individual courses that will be supportive to you in your transformational journey. All right. Until next time. Oh, don't forget to leave me a comment. Leave me your takeaways from this episode. And until next time, stay sovereign.